How do you know who the best carriers are in North America? On this episode of Driven Too Far, we're going to identify the companies that put you first. Hello, I'm Andrew Winkler with Chief Carriers, and this is Driven Too Far, the truth about trucking, a podcast that helps over-the-road truck drivers balance career and family. Welcome back to Driven Too Far. You know, with over 1.8 million registered carriers out there between the United States and Canada, how are you supposed to know which one to go work for? Well, thankfully now there's two programs out there in our industry that will help you find the best jobs available for professional drivers. The first one you may have heard of. It's been around the longest. It's called the Best Fleets to Drive For, and it's put out by Carrier's Edge every year. This year, in 2025, a new program has emerged by the Truckload Carriers Association, and it's called Elite Fleets. Both programs have a similar purpose, and that's to identify the best professional working places for drivers. Why do these programs matter? Because they help identify companies that are driver-centric. You guys and gals out there, you face so many challenges in the industry. It's long hours, it's away from home. At times it can feel like low wages, waiting times, detention. You got to put up with the general public and the motoring public. You may work for companies that have high turnover because they don't do many things right. The pay can be an issue again. And then there's always the safety factor too. There's a lot of companies out there that probably are not focused on safety like they should. They're focused on their own profits and they don't care about the driver. They just get out there and run, get as many miles as you can out of that driver and turn those profits. The cool thing about these programs, when they started Best Fleets years ago, they really wanted to pull some things out of the industry, and they wanted to know who's the best in the industry creating a driver program. So these things actually matter. Who's out there with fair pay, good benefits, they're innovative, they're trying to do things different and better to constantly improve your driver's experience. One of the things I've always enjoyed about this program, and I've been involved, we're actually involved with both now, but Best Fleets for many, many years. And the thing I liked about it was it made me better and it made our company better. Because once you get involved in the program, you're kind of benchmarking yourself against all the other carriers that are applying to the program as well. And you get to see those results and you get to see some of the innovative things that these carriers are doing for their drivers. So it makes you want to do better. It makes you reach higher. If I'm fortunate enough to make the list for that year, then I also know that it's going to get tougher next year because nobody's sitting still. They're trying to figure out better ways all the time to improve your lifestyle as a professional driver on the road. And that's the beauty of the program. It's just constantly evolving. So what do drivers look for out there? What are they looking for in the programs? Yeah, it has to do with pay and benefits, but it also has to do with like quality of life, career progression. You know, what else are they offering you? Do they have a path for you that would eventually bring you into the office if that's what you want to do? Do you want to be a safety director? Do you want to be a transportation broker, or do you want to be a leader in the trucking company? You want to work in a safe environment. You want good equipment to do your job. And most of all, you probably want respect. And I think that's really what these companies bring to the table is if they're involved in these programs, they're really trying. We know trucking's not a perfect industry, and there's days that are just a hot mess for all of us. No matter how good you are in the industry, things don't always go right. But it's about the carriers and the people that are constantly trying to make it better for you. They understand what you're going through, and they're never going to stop working to make your job better. Now, the Best Fleets to Drive For program, again, like I said, put out by Carrier's Edge, started back in 2008. So it's been around, I think it's in its 17th year this year. It's an interesting process to go through. And I think I didn't get involved into it till probably 2012 was the first year I jumped in. But there's an application. So it's a lengthy application process, mind you. It's over 100 questions. And they're asking you how you run your company. And it dives into compensation, to benefits, to HR strategies, to equipment, career advancement. What are you doing for the environment? You know, are you a steward of the environment? Are you always looking for better ways to do things like that? So there's a lot of different categories in it, and you have to go through this questionnaire and answer it. The next step with the best fleets then is they schedule a corporate interview. So they've got all your answers on the application, but a lot of times they want to clarify things, or maybe they've come up with other questions that they want to ask you. It's like, oh, I see you're doing this. How do you do this, or how does it impact your drivers? So they're looking for more clarity in those interviews. Then once you get past the interview, you have to survey a certain percentage of your driver, and that's the validation piece. So they're pushing out, and I want to say 25% of your fleet has to answer the survey questions provided by Best Fleets, and they're out there making sure the carrier is doing all the things they say they do. So they're asking you things like, how long have you worked for this company? Is this a company you would consider working for the rest of your career? Would you recommend this company to somebody else? So it's a lot of questions like that. And they're really trying to get the driver feel of, how do you feel about working for this company? Do you rate them high, or is it in the middle, or is it low? Is this company just blowing smoke in this application process? So that's the validation piece, and that's pretty important. Now, Best Fleets, what they do then is, after everybody's submitted everything, they've gone through the interviews, they got the driver surveys back, they start their calculation process, and everything is scored, and then they identify the top 20 carriers every year. So remember I said there's 1.8 million carriers out there in the US and Canada? So this competition is open to carriers with 10 or more trucks. So not everybody's going to qualify for this, but it's anybody with 10 or more trucks is welcome to apply to it. Now, does everybody do it? Of course not. They don't. But the progressive carriers, the innovative carriers that want to do better, they are absolutely in it. One of the things I've told people over the years, as I've attended the Best Fleets conference, and I've even been fortunate enough to win it a few times, in giving that acceptance speech, as I'm like, this is the best program on the planet. And it's the best program because it's out there. We're all making each other better. So even though we're competitors as truck lines, we're competing with each other to do better, to be more innovative. It's like, you did this year, you came up with this program. Now, what are you going to do next year to get even better? So it constantly pushes you as a business, as a leader, to improve your offerings to driver. So that's kind of the underlying beauty of the program that people don't always see, but it's that constant need to get better. Once you're in the program, you don't want to fall off the list. So that's the beauty of that. Now, Elite Fleets is the newest program, and it's put out by the Truckload Carriers Association. This is the first year for it, 2025. It's very similar in structure to the Best Fleets, but one of the differences is they teamed up with the University of Denver and their Supply Chain Institute. So they have a group of professionals that are out there teaching logistics and supply chains, kind of evaluating the program itself and scoring it. So I thought that was a kind of a cool twist on it. The other thing with Elite Fleets is they're not just narrowing it down to a top 20. They're basically saying, here's the criteria, and anybody that meets the criteria will be given a certificate, and you're going to be called an Elite Fleet. So this year there was 47 carriers that made that status. So that's pretty cool too. There's a lot of great options out there when you're looking at carriers. But again, there's 1.8 million. So, if I was a driver in the industry, I always tell this to students when I talk to them too, but if I was just getting my start in the industry and I didn't know where to start or who to go to drive for, this is where I would start. I would go look up the best fleets to drive for. They publish those carriers' names on their website, and I think it's even hyperlinked. You could click on it. It goes right to the carrier website, so you can check them out. And the same way with Truckload Carriers Association. So on the TCA website, they've also done that, where they've listed the carriers that have been named an Elite Fleet for this year. So that's a great place to start. If you're new to the industry and you're wondering who to go work for, these are a lot of great companies, but you want to try to find somebody that is probably close to your home, close to your hometown. The reason you do that is because you know those trucks always have to come back to that terminal, and that's how you're going to get your home time. You can go to work for somebody across the country, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. Just make sure you're asking the right questions about what is my realistic home time if I do that. That carrier may struggle to get you home as often as you'd like to. Now, if you're out there seeing the country and you don't really care when you go home, this might be a great option for you. So again, why do these programs matter? Why should they matter to you? Because these are the programs that drive innovation and change into our industry. And again, I'll go back to 2012, kind of when I started in the best fleets, but I can tell you specifically, there's some things that happened with driver detention. You have one company step forward and they start paying driver detention a certain way, maybe 2 hours, or maybe it's we pay our driver detention no matter what. Because when driver detention started, it used to be kind of a game. It would be like, well, we'll pay you detention if our customer pays us. That's not right. So one of the things that Best Fleets did, or the program brought out, was a carrier said, listen, we're going to take care of our driver regardless if the company pays us back for the detention, because it's the right thing to do. So once one company steps up and starts that process, the rest of us start looking at it and go, you know what? They're right. We probably need to change that policy too. And that's how you start to drive change in the industry. I can think of one that I probably came up with. It was rate your shipper experience. So within the MobileCom system, when you punch your empty call in, it would pop up a question, hey, can you rate your experience with this particular load or shipper? And it was an option to, or an opportunity to rate 0 to 5 stars, and even put in a couple comments. We then took that data from our drivers, and then we could compile it by customer. And anytime a salesperson was going to go make a customer visit, they could have that data and say, hey, I just want you to see that our drivers speak very highly of your loads and your operation. You got a lot of 4 and 5 stars in there, so you guys are doing a great job. Or it could be the exact opposite of that. It could be, hey, I wanted to bring this to your attention. We track and we ask our drivers to rate their experience when they come to your facility. And one of the things that keeps popping up is that there's no facilities for drivers. There's nowhere to go to the restroom. And oftentimes when a driver asks, they're told they have to leave the property to go do it. So that was a rating system that we created. And I happen to know that there's one of the major software companies that picked up on that idea, which is great. But they added it to their software offerings. So anybody that runs that software package now has access to that. Guaranteed pay programs. So maybe some of you have heard of that, maybe some of you haven't. But the idea was, again, it's like doing the right thing for the driver. It's like, look, these men and women are going out for a week or 2 weeks at a time. And sometimes things happen that are out of their control, even out of our control sometimes. But they're giving us their time. So is it right to just pay the driver by the mile? And when things go sideways on us, are you supposed to just look at the driver and go, hey, sorry, things didn't work out, the load canceled, or you had a breakdown and you were down for 3 days out of the week, sorry, your pay is going to suffer? That's not right. That's when the company has to step up and do the right thing for the driver. So that's a lot of times where the guaranteed pay, minimum pay packages came in. It was a Best Fleets idea. And what about driver comfort and amenities? I saw this one kind of blow up on us too, because one of the questions they ask in the surveys is, what kind of amenities do you have at your terminal for the driver? Are you providing laundry and showers and vending, or do you even provide free food or free snacks, free drinks, things like that? So we saw that kind of evolve over the years too, where somebody started offering free snacks. Well, then all of a sudden the next year, a lot of carriers started offering free snacks to the drivers. Epic View, if you're not familiar with that, it's kind of a satellite TV system for the cab of the truck. That was a big push. It was like, it kind of becomes a game. It's like, what else can we do for our drivers? How else can we step up and take better care of our drivers? Oh, we could put satellite TV in the trucks. How we spec the trucks. Has everything got a refrigerator in it? Years ago, that was a pretty uncommon spec. That was more of an owner-operator spec. But nowadays, in most company trucks, you're going to find a refrigerator in it. And that was part of this too. So Chief Carriers is part of a larger corporation called Chief Industries. So we have 6 other divisions that are mostly in manufacturing. We happen to be the private carrier for Chief Industries. And one of the things I always did too is we got a report at the end of the year after the Best Fleets competition, and it basically shows where you ranked, how you ranked against the other truck lines and stuff. And it would really show what you're doing well and where you're kind of falling behind in trends. One of the things I'd brought attention to our HR department was benefits. So it wasn't necessarily about how well do your benefits pay. It was more about the timing of things. So at the time, we had like a 90-day waiting period on health insurance. That was pretty common stuff. But over time, you started to see a trend where that would drop to 60-day, 30-day. And there's even some companies now that just you start benefits day one. So that was a positive change that I think that we were able to bring from Best Fleets back to our parent company and just share the data with them too. So it goes beyond trucking sometimes, what the power of these programs actually have. And I'd like to think if we made a change because of some of that information that we shared, that we affected more than just our professional drivers. We affected people in the office and in the other divisions of Chief Industries. So anyways, kind of a cool story there. So how can you benefit from the programs? Let's focus on you for just a minute. First off is, you know what, go to the websites bestfleetstodrivefor.com or truckload.org are the two websites, and you will find the list of those carriers. That's a great place to start. Again, you can get to those individual carrier websites and you can start comparing and looking at, what they have to offer. I think that's a great thing to do. Does your current employer participate? And if they don't, who could you talk to get them involved in that? So both contests usually start in the fall, meaning it's, for Best Fleets anyway, it takes a nomination from a driver, usually around Labor Day or right after. It just takes one driver to nominate your company to get into the contest. And if your company accepts, then you're in. You go through the process of the application and the interview and the driver surveys. So it doesn't take much to get you involved in it. But talk to somebody pretty high up in your company. If they don't know what it is, get them to start exploring it and tell them why you think it's important, because it makes us a better company. And one of the things that people don't see, they're going to go, oh man, we've got to spend all this extra money to give the drivers all these things, to start offering these things to the driver. But what they don't see is the retention benefits. When you start running a better and cleaner company and you start taking care of your people, they don't leave. So then you get the money back from maybe all your recruiting, your marketing type spend on that. And that's the ROI in it. So really you just have drivers that are happy people. They're safer. They stick around longer. It's just a win-win all the way around. You have a voice, so let's use it. Be an advocate for better working conditions. You don't have to put up with crappy working conditions. Dispatchers or people that disrespect you, don't care about your safety. I'm just here to tell you there's some really good companies out there, and this is a great way to go find them. Thanks for joining us on this episode of Driven Too Far. If you're interested in learning more about fleets that prioritize you, check out the show notes.